My friends, what we're witnessing today is not an ordinary analysis. It's the autopsy of an empire that began to devour itself in real time. The sky over Moscow turned completely black. We're not talking about a political metaphor or an empty figure of speech from diplomacy. We're talking about literal fire, about smoke so dense, so thick, and so brutal that satellites in outer space recorded the dark stain covering the Russian capital. Look at the level of the situation. The gigantic Gazprom oil refinery in the Kapotnia district went up in flames for the second time in a single week. And do you know how far this refinery is from the golden halls of Vladimir Putin? Just a kilometer. A kilometer from the Kremlin. That means the war is no longer at distant borders. The war has torn up the living room carpet of the Russian elite and set up in the backyard of those in power. What happened on the night of June 19, 2026 was the largest and most devastating drone attack on the Russian capital since the beginning of this entire conflict. A shockwave that paralyzed airports, canceled flights, and showed the world a vulnerability that no one, absolutely no one, thought possible. No one is going to talk about this with the proper seriousness here on YouTube, but we are facing the relentless law of the Moscow boomerang. Remember this expression very well. Write it in the comments. And don't forget, the Moscow boomerang is the iron rule of spiritual and military geopolitics that says whoever unleashes indiscriminate fire against the sacred will inevitably get hell back in their own backyard. First, please subscribe, turn on notifications, and like the video. It takes a lot of work. Now see what happened. A few days ago, in an act of pure arrogance and psychological desperation, Russia bombed a monastery in Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, which is not just an old building, it's a UNESCO-protected heritage site and one of the most sacred places in the entire Orthodox Christian world. They attacked the spiritual heart of the enemy. And what was the response? President Volodymyr Zelensky personally walked through the smoky rubble of the 1,000-year-old monastery, looked straight into the cameras without blinking, and made a prophetic and stern promise. He said, "They struck the Lavra, we will prepare the response. You will see." And the response, my friends, did not come in the form of a note of condemnation at the UN. The response came in the form of 555 Ukrainian kamikaze drones launched in a single night, with intelligence reports indicating that this number may have reached a frightening swarm of 900 unmanned aircraft tearing through the darkness. The spell turned against the sorcerer. 194 of these drones broke through absolutely all layers of defense and dove like birds of prey directly at the capital. The Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov went to the microphones visibly stunned to say that the Russian armed forces are working on it. Do you know what the practical translation of that bureaucratic phrase is? We have no idea how to stop this. Our shield failed miserably, our capital is exposed, and we are losing control of our own airspace. This is very serious because it marks the definitive break of an illusion of invincibility that sustained Moscow for decades. That's why we need to dive into the cold and calculated anatomy of this attack, because modern war isn't won with gunpowder and fiery speeches alone. It's won in the relentless math of war exhaustion. The Gazprom refinery wasn't chosen at random on the map. It's not a traditional military target, it's not a tank base or a missile silo. This refinery is the energy lung that supplies a third, listen carefully, a third of all the civilian fuel that powers the city of Moscow, one of the largest metropolises in the world. By choosing this target, Ukraine applied what we call high-performance war entrepreneurship, a mathematical saturation tactic that is literally driving the Russian defense economy to bankruptcy with every strike. Pay attention to the numbers because they reveal the true extent of the humiliation. Now a certain commander, a bastard child of the Cold War, is going to get goosebumps. Ukraine is building and sending these long-range drones at an estimated cost of $50,000 per unit. $50,000. To try to shoot down just one of these cheap and lethal machines, Russia is forced to fire missiles from its Pantsir system, which cost $150,000 each. And when the Pantsir fails, and they are failing miserably, Desperation makes them activate the legendary S-400 system firing missiles that cost $3 million to shoot down a $50,000 drone. Do you understand the gravity of this asymmetry? It's not just about how many drones hit the target, it's about forcing the enemy to burn millions of dollars from their own defense budget. With every passing hour, depleting the stockpiles of interceptor missiles until there's nothing left but empty tubes and panicked generals. It's an unsustainable scale. Russia used to boast about launching its Iranian-designed Shahed drones against Ukrainian cities at a rate of 1,000 per week, but now the tables have turned dramatically. The response to what? It wasn't just about resisting, it was about escalating the pain. They created a swarm attack architecture that Russia's layered system simply can't handle. The volume, the direction, and precision, the low cost created a perfect storm. And while the bureaucrats in Moscow try to make sense of the cost spreadsheet for an air defense that's draining the nation's coffers, Russian civilian infrastructure burns. The flames rise. Hundreds of meters high, and the ordinary citizen, the one who until yesterday watched the war on television as if it were a distant movie, now smells the smoke invading his apartment in the heart of the country. Ukrainian wartime entrepreneurship has proven that tactical intelligence combined with low-cost technology can bring the slow, outdated Soviet bear to its knees. The system is devouring itself, but the humiliation doesn't stop there, because the images leaking on social media and escaping state censorship show something even more terrifying for Moscow's military pride. We analyzed the raw footage frame by frame, and what we saw is visual proof of systemic collapse. There is specific video recorded by eyewitnesses that shows the sky lit up by the trails of Russian anti-aircraft rockets trying to intercept the drones. And suddenly, the unthinkable happened. A Russian interceptor missile, fired in the desperation of a blind defense, misses its target, plunges back to the ground, and hits the top of the oil storage tank at the Russian refinery directly. The impact creates a situation of massive overpressure. The roof of the tank, weighing tons and valued at tens of millions of dollars along with the fuel, is ejected hundreds of meters into the air as if it were the lid of a pressure cooker exploding in flames. Look at the level of incompetence. The Russian shield not only failed to protect the infrastructure, the Russian shield itself turned into the sword that destroyed the refinery. It's an archaic, desperate system, shooting in the dark and devouring itself. This exposes a deep Soviet flaw, my friends. A technological limitation that the West overcame years ago, but Russia tried to compensate for it with brute force alone. When you're facing swarms of modern drones, you don't use heavy ballistic missiles. You need high-power microwave weapons, directed energy weapons, laser weapons. Like the cutting-edge technology developed by American companies such as Epirus or Unreal. This technology emits an invisible pulse that fries the electronic components of dozens of drones at the same time, taking down the entire swarm without firing a single explosive projectile, preventing colossal damage to your own infrastructure. It's the equivalent of a surgical sniper. But Russia, isolated by sanctions and stuck in its doctrine of building bigger, not smarter, doesn't have that capability. They're using a heavy sledgehammer to try to kill a fly that's flying over a powder keg, and the inevitable result is the detonation of the keg itself. The operator who pushed the button for that failed missile in Moscow is probably already in the interrogation room, losing his rubles and his career. But the problem isn't the soldier. The problem is the arrogance of a billion-dollar defense system that's stuck in the past. And now it's proving useless against the new generation of cyber and autonomous warfare. They laughed when Iran attacked the defense systems of Israel and the United States. They looked down on it and turned up their noses, mocking Donald Trump. Now the spell has backfired on the sorcerer again. And my friends, let me quickly say something to those who feel they have something important to say. But you still haven't managed to turn that into a real digital presence, and you keep being ignored by the algorithm. On July 12th, mark this date. July 12th, 2026 in Curitiba, Paraná. I'm going to hold an in-person immersion right here. from my professional studio, showing exactly the behind the scenes of how I built an audience of over 50 million views every month without relying on paid traffic. Pay attention. This isn't a lecture for a crowd. It's not a recorded course. There will be only 10 people with me, breathing the same air, learning script writing, recording, positioning, authority, and most importantly, the impactful communication that I bring here in practice. Looking you in the eye, how I beat the algorithm and made it into your home with this high-impact communication. If you want to stop being invisible and learn to communicate with a real method without that endless online course nonsense, the QR code is right there on your screen. The link is in the description and in the first pinned comment, because this could be your turning point here in this world I'm talking about. It's wonderful. Now let's get back to our battlefield. We need to take a closer look at the mechanical executioner that caused all this terror in Moscow. The UJ-26 drone, affectionately nicknamed Bobber by Ukrainians, which when translated means beaver. Forget the image of toy drones. The beaver is a lethal precision weapon, developed by the main Directorate of Intelligence of Ukraine in partnership with the local industry. It has a shark-like canard design, a sleek fuselage, inverted tail, and a pusher propeller mounted at the rear, but it's the numbers that scare the Kremlin. It has a range of 1,000 kilometers and carries 50 kilograms of explosives, including a KZ-6-shaped charge warhead, specifically designed to tear through Russian reinforced concrete. It's virtually a bunker buster, flying silently in the dead of night. It's the truly terrifying innovation. The critical upgrade to this system is the addition of a real-time manual control system, FPV style, with thermal imaging and a high-bandwidth data link. This means there's a human operator in the loop during the final approach. And the scariest part, artificial intelligence takes over the pinpoint corrections at the moment of the dive. The drone travels 1,000 kilometers on its own. And in the final seconds, the operator gets an alert on the screen. He takes control as if he were in a high-risk video game. And he directs 50 kilos of precision explosives right at the most vital and flammable valve of the refinery. It's the fusion of human judgment with the relentless precision of artificial intelligence. And Russia has no idea how to intercept this now, and to understand why their defenses have fallen. We have to understand the mindset of the commanders operating them. What we're witnessing in the Russian ranks is a dark hollowness, a disturbing historical parallel with the final days of the Third Reich, when Russia decides to divert its resources to bomb the ancient monastery and World Heritage sites like the Kiev Lavra. This is not military tactics. This is the sadism of sick and frustrated generals who know they are losing tactical control of the war. This comes straight from the manual of Little Mustache, who was cornered in World War II. Consumed by hatred and impotence, he ordered his generals to burn the most beautiful castles of Germany and to destroy the classical architecture and reduce their own history to ashes. The difference, and this is a crucial point in history, is that many German generals hesitated. They lied to the dictator. They preserved history and ignored the madman's orders. But in today's Russia, the generals do not hesitate. Putin's military leadership is in such a dark and fearful mental space that they blindly obey the order to destroy the sacred, just to inflict psychological pain on the Ukrainian people. But psychological warfare works both ways. By hitting the monastery, Putin triggered the precision retaliation response. President Zelensky didn't respond by burning Orthodox churches in Moscow. He responded by crushing Russia's ability to continue funding the war. Zelensky's walk through the rubble of Lavra, it was the oath of a leader. He understood that the ethics of war require focusing on what really hurts the aggressor state: their money, their fuel, and their false sense of security. The Ukrainian decision to focus on oil refining, and not just on strictly military targets or random civilian ones, it's a masterclass in information warfare. The goal isn't just to destroy the oil. The goal is to send a burning message to the Russian citizen, the one who fills up his car in Moscow. The message is clear. The bill for your leader's boundless ambition has arrived, and the price will be taken directly from your pocket, from your security, and right outside your bedroom window. Oh, Moscow's boomerang does not forgive arrogance. And it's exactly this logic of self-destruction of the system that attacks its own body in an attempt to survive a threat it created itself. And that today leads us to the absolute verdict. I want you to go right now to the comments of this video and type these two words in capital letters. Defensive autophagy. Write that down. Defensive autophagy. That's what sums up the Russian Empire destroying its own refineries with its own missiles. And that's what sums up the collapse of empires that lose their rationality. And while the sky over Moscow burns, the global geopolitical chessboard trembles in sync in Washington and the Middle East. The highly controversial agreement that the United States was about to sign with Iran, mediated by Donald Trump, simply collapsed before it even really took effect. The ink on the memorandum of understanding with the Ayatollahs was barely dry. The newspapers were already positioned everywhere. And Vice President Vance had his bags packed, ready to head to Switzerland, where the real negotiations would take place. But suddenly the White House issued an emergency statement, canceling Vance's flight in the middle of the night. And why? Because on the global chessboard, all the pieces are connected. Israel didn't ask for permission, in direct response to attacks that took the lives of 4 of its soldiers. The Israeli Defense Forces launched a brutal campaign of heavy airstrikes in southern Lebanon during the early hours of the morning. Israel tore Washington's diplomatic schedule in half. Israel's Minister of National Security Itamar Ben-Gvir was surgical, cold, and sharp when he openly declared, "The Trump deal does not bind us." Look at the strength of that statement. The most powerful Western ally in the Middle East has warned the most powerful man in the world that the survival of the State of Israel is not subject to memorandums signed with terrorists sponsored by Tehran. Vance had warned Israel earlier. He did so publicly, urging them to respect the peace process just hours before. But survival speaks louder, my friend. Fiery speeches are useless. Israel made its move. Iran is in check. The agreement collapsed, and the fragile web of global geopolitical stability proved once again that it rests on a powder keg ready to explode. And the waves from these explosions connect the fire in Beirut to the flames now licking the skies of the Russian capital. And it's precisely because of this kind of smokescreen, these truths that global media conglomerates can't or won't explain with the necessary depth, that you need to be protected. Yes, the system operates in the shadows to cover up what is really happening on the global stage. Don't be a hostage to these dictatorships of shallow narratives. Access my exclusive platform now, completely free from censorship, Our Intelligence Bunker, where there are already more than 3,000 elite analysts who fund the truth and pore over the map of what is really happening in the world every day. Cell phone, QR code here on the screen, link in the description and in the first pinned comment. Come to the good side of the force. Now stop wasting time choosing a movie or a series to watch and being buried by ideological agendas. Access our channel with tips on series and movies, a fantastic curation for you to just enjoy with your family. With high quality, without woke culture and without whining. The link is available for you in the description, in the pinned comment, and in the card that will appear now in the video. Well, my friends, the big question that keeps echoing in the halls of world power today is this: where does all this end? Has the escalation of tension reached a point of no return? Has the average citizen in Moscow woken up to a reality where war is no longer just news edited by state censors? Is war the panic at the closed airports? Is it the imminent shortage at the gas pump? And the terrifying sight that the man who promised imperial glory can't even protect the backyard of his own palace? The message was delivered with surgical violence. As long as even a single Ukrainian drone can fly, the aggressor's capital will have no peace. And if you think these events are far away, Understand that the global economy, the price of the things you consume, and the security of the world we live in depend directly on who will blink first in this deadly game of Russian roulette. And don't forget, on July 12th, I will open the doors of my studio with my team and show you how I reach 50 million views every month on YouTube, Instagram, and social media. How my message managed to reach you. How about it? How about having this experience here with Shimon Oliveira, sharing all the details with you? It's not an online course, it's not just talk, it's not theory. I'm going to teach you hands-on in the studio with the cameras on, the lights, the microphone, everything set up so you can understand the algorithm and learn how to break the million barrier. I'll wait for you there. QR code on screen, link in the description, and first pinned comment. Now subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and like the video because it takes a lot of work to make, my friends. Blend your mind. I'm Shimon Oliveira and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.